Is there, was there an attempt to contact everyone that participated in the last one? We're gonna have some consistency. We didn't have sign up sheets or any contact. Oh, okay. Had a good turnout, so I was hoping most of those people would come.
Saturday before Easter Sunday.
Didn't see a name.
Are we on? Okay. Welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of March 20th, 2023. Happy spring. We will begin by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Goodloe. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Beauchamp.
Here.
Elliott,
Here.
Goodloe. Here. Lowquist. Here. David Miller.
Here.
Monica Miller.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Thank you. So we'll begin with a proclamation read by Dan Witkowski from Central Washington Disability Resources. And actually, before you begin, if anyone needs help hearing, we have some assistive devices back out, the guy out there. Yeah, so just, you can get up and get one if you find you can't hear.
Okay.
Hi,
so-
Dan.
Hey, I'm Dan Wachowski. I'm a citizen here in Ellensburg and I work for Central Washington Disability. So I'm very honored to read this proclamation. I think it means a lot to our community and it's good to get awareness out. So this is a City of Ellensburg's proclamation. So the National Development of Disabilities Awareness Month. So whereas accordingly to the National Disability Institute of 1987, President Ronald Reagan recognized the Developmental Disability Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the needs of potential of Americans who face developmental disabilities and to provide the opportunities they need in order to live in productive lives and to achieve their full potential. And whereas accordingly to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, developmental disabilities are defined as impairments in physical, learning, language, behavior areas, which include autism spectrum disorders, cerebral palsy, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, intellectual and learning disabilities, hearing loss, vision impairment, and others, developmental delays. And whereas recent estimates of the CDC shows the United States, 1 in 6 children between the ages of 3 and 17 have one or more developmental disabilities. This U.S. Census Bureau estimates that 13% of the population of both Kittitas County and Washington State is disabled. And whereas in Washington State, 72% of developmental disability administrations, the DDA clients, live with their parents or relatives. 10% live in their own homes and 8% live in supported living environments. And about 3.75% live in adult family homes. And whereas people with disabilities are less likely to compete in high school, less likely to be employed, and be more likely to live in poverty compared to people without disabilities. And whereas Central Washington Disability Resources, CWDR, is located in Ellensburg, is the resource agency for people with disabilities of any age and provides case management, developmental disability support groups, therapeutic swim programs, skill training, counseling assistance with housing, attendance care, and advocacy. Whereas the mission of Kittitas County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Committee is to foster an inclusion environment that supports residents with developmental disabilities and their families to participate and to contribute to all aspects of their community. And now and therefore, the city of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim that March is Developmental Disability Awareness Month, encouraging all residents to be more cognizant of their talents, skills, abilities, and persons with this developmental disabilities, bringing our lives to this community. Dated on the 20th day of March, 2023.
Thank you, Dan. And there are no awards or recognitions, so we'll move to approval of the agenda, and I would recommend either moving 8A and B to after new business items 11, or at least moving the Catherine Park discussion 11A ahead of 8.
Madam Mayor, I move the agenda moving 8A and B to item 11D and E.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda, amending it to move item 8A and B to 11 D and E. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would I? Thank you. Okay. So we are at item 6A, Board and Commission appointments for the Affordable Housing Commission. Mr. Witkowski and Kim Funston have been recommended.
Kim Funston. Max,
Oh. Sorry.
Does staff want to comment, or who's our? Is it Sarah? It's Jamie. Regarding the interviews or the applicants?
I can speak. This is Madam Mayor Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. And as the staff liaison to the Affordable Housing Commission, we did we had 5 applicants. We ended up interviewing 3 of the 5 applicants for the vacant positions. Both Dan Witkowski and Kim Funston were recommended highly from the committee that conducted the interviews with Sarah Bedsel, Jordan Ruley, and myself on those interviews. Councilmember Beauchamp was not able to make the interviews, but we did have 3 people to conduct those, and that's the recommendation. Their involvement with Mr. Witkowski with disabled and youth and homeless has a good background that's very fitting. Ms. Funston, with her background in the real estate market in Ellensburg and longtime resident, we felt they interviewed very well, answered the questions, and that's the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Witkowski, would you like to say a few words? You don't have to.
Sure.
I guess the reason I think I'm a really good fit for the board is the sense that I work with unsheltered population here in Ellensburg in Kittitas County, and we actually serve 5 other counties. We kind of see what's going on in Eastern Washington. I've been working probably in this field probably almost 10, 11 years. But just in the last 2 years, I've been kind of helping out with unsheltered individuals, trying to find housing opportunities for them, and kind of realizing that the city is really working really hard at that, and that we can really kind of push that in a direction that really kind of solves that problem. Maybe we can be a solution for other counties with this kind of growing situation. So I kind of felt it was a good fit, and I'm really happy to be part of it here in Ellensburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Funston, do you want to say anything? You don't have to. Okay. Thanks. So council,
Madam Mayor, I move we accept the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Commission for new membership, Kim Funston and Daniel Wachowski.
Second. Motion and second to accept the Affordable Housing Commission's recommendation to appoint Daniel Witkowski and Kim Funston. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Two will vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we have Chief Sinclair here for an update of the Kittitas Valley Fire and Rescue.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes. I was asked to do a briefing and a city council member told me that the key phrase here would be brief. So I know that you have a very long council meeting, so I'm going to try and, I only have 72 slides, so we're good. So I was asked to see if I can.
Just a click.
I did that. Okay, there we go. So this is a fire that we had in the early part of December.
Get that out of the way.
Yeah, I figured I might as well just get that out of the way quickly. Obviously, the city has been impacted greatly by this particular fire. It started out at ACX. It was I'm comfortable calling it an arson fire. We brought in ATF. They have assisted us with the investigation. And they have a suspect in custody. We are waiting to see whether or not they get a conviction. Like I said, it started out, it was 8 degrees when I arrived. Okay. And it got down to about 4 degrees. It was essentially 2 commercial buildings side by side. I went and did a 360 around this particular building. And as I was coming around this side, we noticed that the Racket Club was on fire. So we called a total of 5 alarms. We had responders from Moses Lake en route, Yakima, and we toned out every district in the county to assist us with this. Unfortunately, both buildings were a total loss. There was not a hydrant here, so we suffered from water supply issues. Closest hydrant is 3 miles away. So that's one of those things where commercial building development in a non-hydrated area, this is the result that you get. And it's unfortunate for the community. But it is one of those things that, you know, when you have criminal activity, which this was, there's not a lot you can do. We did bring 4 tenders to the scene, 3 of them which froze up at the scene. So weather really hindered this and lack of water hindered this. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but come along, little Logie. Okay, so is somebody that's smarter than me, can they advance this thing? Okay. Okay, there we go. Thanks. So obviously this is a map of the district, just making sure that everybody understands. City of Ellensburg is the donut hole in our larger donut. We are 278 square miles for fire suppression footprint, 1,200 square miles for an EMS footprint, because we provide EMS, which is paramedic level ambulance service to the rest of the county in Hospital District 1. We are accountable to our taxpayers, and I won't belabor this because I'll show you the outcome of that. This is our call volume, 2007 through 21. We've seen about a 65% increase in overall call volume. We flattened out a little bit starting into this year. And actually, because we also service the ambulance service, one of the things that we're noticing is because the entire hospital system in the state is stressed, so we're not doing as many transfers out of KVH. KVH has done quite a bit to step up and try to handle more patients in their system, and that is actually working. This is property valuation. We went through a 10-year period where we didn't see a lot of growth, and I'll show you a slide here in a minute that takes a look at that. This is all in your packet, so you can study this at your leisure. This is just what our assessed value did, as well as our lid lift. So back in 2019, we were at $1.50. By 2022, we had floated down to $1.25 as far as our AV, which is the reason why we went out and asked the citizens for a lid lift again. So this is 2022. We were about 4.3 billion in assessed value. That generated at $1.25, about 5.5 million in tax revenue. We went out to the public in August of last year and asked for the lid lift to be raised. And excuse me, it's a simple majority because it was already at $1.50, and the report card from the voters was pretty good. They voted us in at 60%, even at a supermajority level. So we felt comfortable with that. And that allowed us to see a pretty good jump in our AV over 1 year period. Our AV grew by $800 million inside of the district. And so we told the voters that we were going to increase staffing with that money. So we're in the process right now of hiring 6 new firefighter positions. We have put in for a federal FEMA grant for little under $900,000 for our self-contained breathing apparatus. We do have money allocated in the budget. If that FEMA grant does not come through, we will go ahead and purchase those because they are at end of life. And those are the tanks that the firefighters wear on their backs to go into IDLH environments, which is immediately dangerous to life and health. So they are absolutely essential for us to go in and do rescues and do interior fire combat operations. We did build a brand new station a couple of years ago, thanks to the community. They supported that. One of the things that has plagued that particular building is a leaky roof since we built it. We have engaged in trying to go about explaining the need to the general and the subcontractor. That has gotten us nowhere. We have enjoined them in a lawsuit. And we're currently in mediation with them to see if they can be willing to pony up the cost of the new roof. If not, then we do have money in the budget to be able to do that. We're also looking at buying another fire engine this year. Obviously, there's no shortage of future needs. We continue to need to replace medic units. 4 out of every 5 calls that we run on, about 81% of our call volume is EMS in nature. And as I said, we spend a lot of time on the highway doing transfers out of the community. So as we look at future growth, we're looking at some time in the future, looking at a staff station out to the west. We are looking at all our 2 staff stations are both inside the city of Ellensburg, but on the fringe. We will need one out towards the west as sort of a hub and spoke so that we're quickly to get back into the interior, but we're able to serve the rest of the community. Our ladder truck is looking at end of service life. It's 25 years old. So there's no shortage of needs. We just have to prioritize them in the same way that the city council manages the needs of the city. So I showed you this slide last year. This was our staffing level in 2007. This is our staffing level in 2023. It's about a 62% increase in overall staffing, and that's reflective of the additional firefighters that we'll be hiring this year. We certainly are like every other fire department that is out there, because there's a lot of departments that are hiring. One of the things that there's a national shortage of is paramedics. So we're trying very hard to increase a standard of living. Obviously, I'm not going to get out over my skis because this is contract negotiations year. So we'll be seeing what the firefighters do in their contract this next year. I will say that the commissioners lean forward quite a bit. And kudos to them. We did have a contractual obligation of a 4% increase in the overall contract because of the significant increase in inflation over this last year. We actually went above and beyond what the contract called for so that we were on a more level platform heading into contract negotiations this year. And I thank the commissioners for doing that. A little bit about our prevention division. I'll try to highlight one division every year when I come in. It might startle you, maybe it won't, but it startled me that we have 1,018 commercial occupancies inside the city of Ellensburg. And we've got two people, two and 2/10, because Chief Elliott also helps quite a bit with these. But those two people go out and do all of the commercial occupancies, do the initial inspection, and they also do the re-inspections when they need to. The prevention division did 18 fire investigations. One of those was with ACX and it lasted multiple days because we had ATF in. A lot of them, some of the investigations can take up to 20 or 30 hours per investigation. Then they have to come in and compile the report and whatnot. So there's a lot of staff hours and there's literally hundreds of hours invested on development issues. Joe Delvo, our captain of prevention, is very involved in the development community and trying to help them get buildings done right so that we don't have inspection issues as he does the inspections. So Captain Delvo does an amazing job. I thought it might be of interest that I asked Captain Delvo what the top 5 code violation issues were. Number 1 is door hardware not meeting emergency egress, fire extinguishers not mounted on the wall and or overdue, some common electrical issues, kitchen hoods and their fire suppression systems not being maintained, and unpermitted modification and remodels in their occupancy use. So what we have tried to do, and we're working with the chamber on this, is make sure that people get out in front of these issues ahead of time so that we're not, as we go back in and do re-inspects, we're not finding code violations. When we did pass the bond issue, we told people it would be about 20 cents. I'm happy to report that we're down to about 9 cents for the bond issue on the general obligation bond. And as I said, these are capital projects for the future. One other thing, for the last 4 years, we've been working with Fire District 7, which surrounds Cle Elum and Roslyn. They came to KVFR with the idea of needing a fire chief. So for the last 4 years, I've served as a fire chief for KVFR and Fire District 7. We are now at the conclusion of a feasibility study. And if anybody is interested, there will be a presentation on April 19th at 1800 at Station 29, the one down there on Mountain View, where the consultants will do a presentation of the feasibility of the two agencies coming together under a merger by contract. So you're all invited to that should you wish to attend. Just to remember that we still live in the Intermountain West. This was last year's 2 major fires that we had, that we hosted the incident management team here at the fairgrounds. And the one thing that I will say, it was just announced today, Chief Elliott worked with a group And we were just informed today that we had put in for a community grant. And it was awarded for $10 million that will come into Kittitas County Reclamation District to begin mitigation of the wildland fire problem. That will be huge.
Conservation.
Conservation District, sorry. That's what it was in my head. That's not what my mouth said. So yes. Any questions?
Congratulations on the grant. Are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much. I tried to be as brief as possible.
Thank you. Brief but thorough. That was good information.
You don't have to pretend to stay.
Okay. You want me to cover for you?
Yes, please.
We,
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
we are at citizen comment on non-agenda issues. If you are here for a topic that is not on the current agenda, there's no one signed up, but I think you're off from here for Catherine Parvey. Okay, Mr. Kelleher. And you know the drill, 3 minutes on something. And something that the council can do something about and we don't take action.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A little embarrassing to be here tonight to rescind my endorsement of the Reed Park option D. The Legion and Councilman member Elliott raised public safety concerns about option D during the last council meeting. In the past 7 months, I've attended all meetings for Reed Park. I have attended all parks. In Recreation Commission meetings, I've attended both Reed Park public open houses. Additionally, I have filed extensive written comments with the city clerk. 2 Mondays ago, the council remanded the Reed Park master plan back to the Parks Commission to mitigate for Legion concerns. I attempted to attend the next Parks meeting noticed on the Ellensburg official website. No meeting was held. But all is not lost. The city emailed me information that explained that Craig Avenue was a city street, in that the pull-in parking was designated parking on a city street. All that is needed to address my public safety concerns is curb, gutter, and sidewalk from the water tank to the Legion House. That is 476 feet of curb, gutter, sidewalk at a cost of $150 a foot for a total cost of $71,400 to address my safety concerns. When I explained this to a Legion member, he suggested painting a stripe offset from the existing cable fence, creating a public walkway trail until funding could be secured, much like your bike paths are on our city streets, the little bike things there. We could have like a little wheelchair or something. Trial run for this isn't going to be as expensive as those ecology blocks. That was going to be $300. It's going to be reduced to a can of paint. And I drew the red line, but you probably use white. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to a topic that is not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. So we are jumping ahead to 9A, the second reading of the streeteries. ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, Terry Weiner, City Attorney. This is, as you said, an item for second reading of ordinance 4912, which would adopt a new chapter 4.14A regulating streeteries, parklets, and sidewalk cafes. This matter has been on the agenda several times over the past 2 years at least with council. We sort of winnowed down the issues over that time. And then following a meeting in December, there was a subcommittee formed to look at those issues and come back with recommendations to bring to council for your input, which we did several meetings ago in, I think it was February. And based on those recommended changes, we brought back the ordinance fresh for first reading at your March 6th meeting. At the March 6th meeting, I just want to point out there was first reading, but it was with one amendment. And that amendment went to the fees to be charged for streeteries. Those fees are summarized on page 583 of your agenda packet. They include a concession fee of 80 cents per square foot based on the total square footage of the streetery, the floor size. In addition, $25 per parking stall, and that's per month. And then the city has to pay a leasehold excise tax for use of the right of way. So the streetery permittee would have to pay the city for that amount. And then lastly, a $150 application fee. And those now appear in the ordinance. It's on page 591 in section D of subsection D of section 4.14A.050. I note there is a Scrivener's error on that page. It's just a repeat portion of a line that's somehow made it into this copy, which it's just repeating what's already there in the final version. If it's adopted tonight, that's been taken out. The regulations in the ordinance will provide permanent regulation of streeteries, parklets, and the sidewalk cafes. There are design requirements in those. The Community Development Department will be reviewing any applications for conformance to those design requirements. And there's also a process for public input on the design of applicant streeteries. And then there are some other requirements that are summarized on page 584, but with that, I think I'll stop speaking. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Staff is requesting second reading and adoption of ordinance 4912.
Council, other questions for staff? Is there anyone who would like to speak on this issue? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Blake Collins, 402 North Pearl, the Pearl Barn Grill. Love the adoption and the kind of the halfway in between as far as the price was concerned from the original proposition, the comparable counties and cities and whatnot. Love that we made some sort of progress there. Was just calling to attention in the ordinance, there's a loose phrasing on later spring as far as removal, and specifically because of the chip sealing and scheduling that and making sure that we can lump that too as some sort of bulk bidding with the contractors. Last meeting, Councilmember Elliott made a comment where he felt this is where he was starting to sway, was if we're pushing back that chip seal, then we're causing more damage than good. And I think I actually love that comment got made, because even as a member of the one who has the streetery, it was something I thought of, that I don't like that kind of bending, don't love it. The reality is that's how that ordinance helps both sides or works with both sides, because designing just as we're just now finalizing what those design requirements are for those streeteries, it's going to take some time to be able to get that put together, designed and executed in a modular manner that can fulfill the requirements that we're putting ahead. I think if there's any sort of opportunity to push that vague later spring option to a specific window of between post Labor Day, pre-college beginning September 25th. I know a big part of it is increased traffic. The traffic is greater in that time than in the summer. I would make a point that downtown tourist business is at an all-time high in June, July, and August. And I think that impact of the amount of traffic is I think it's kind of an outdated philosophy to say that Ellensburg is slow in the summer, because I think that discredits our attraction as a tourist facility that we are now, that we've really kind of stepped into that space in Central Washington. And yeah, just I love that we're making progress and we're getting this dialed down. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about streeteries? Mr. Kelleher.
Pat Kelleher, 6530 Wilson Creek Road. I want to speak totally opposed to the streeteries. They're not going to go through the landmarks and design committee. So you're going to have a disjointed look in our historic district. My main concern is it's not fair. The parking spots in the downtown have value. They have value to the consumer. They have value to the businesses. There's a limited amount of parking spots, about 330. We're going to lose 26 parking spots when you demolish Unity Park. To lose, you can have what? 4 per block, 7 blocks. To lose 28 more spots. Okay, I told you tonight, you're going to have a parking concern. The other thing is the city paid $30,000 for a parking study in this area. The replacement cost of a parking stall was determined by a company that determines those things to be $1,800 per stall. If you're going to delete a parking spot, collect the $1,800. 80 cents per square foot. There is not one scintilla evidence to support 75 cents a square foot, 80 cents a square foot, 95 cents per square foot. It's pulled out of the air. You have a study that justifies 1,800. This should be the minimum charge. Now, okay, let's do it a different way. There's plenty of off-street parking available in that 7-block zone. Go 1-to-1 replacement. Go out and get me, you want 4 spots of my public parking. When I come downtown, good. Give me 4 spots that I can go park when I come downtown. Make me whole as a public individual. Just go rent those spots and put public signs on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about streeteries? Is there anyone online? No, okay. Council, do you have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move second reading adoption of ordinance 4912.
Second. Motion and second to connect second reading and adoption of ordinance 4912. Is there a discussion?
Clarification on the comment made about the date. The comment was alluding to a late spring-ish date, and if it could be directed to the page of the packet that I'm seeing a comment about mid 2023, but I'm looking for the reference to the date for removal.
It's scheduled currently for June. But we didn't put it in a firm date because that's subject to what we get back from in response to our bid.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the date is not in the ordinance.
No,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't.
not as a firm date.
Okay, so it's still flexible.
It's planned for the summer. Early summer.
Okay, so passing this ordinance will not create a date certain for removal.
Well,
At
the
this
way it reads is that I think there's a reference to June, perhaps. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I was going for,
Yeah.
trying to figure out if there was a hard date that we could share or if
I
it's to
think
be
there-
determined.
And I think that's what was alluded to before. If you give me 1 second.
Yeah.
In previous versions of the temporary ordinance, required a resolution, provided that we would give notice, to people, as advanced as possible, hopefully 90 days
Yeah,
notice.
and I think that's fine. I think there are enough moving parts. We don't necessarily have to have it in the ordinance, but I want to make sure everyone understood there hasn't been a date set yet.
Not yet.
Right,
Right.
okay. So don't worry about that, attorney.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure we're clear. Yeah, it is on page 589. It says it's planned for mid-2023.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, but,
Sorry.
and the date, the advance notices, that'll be worked out
Well
with
before.
staff. Right,
Yes.
okay.
Roll
Thank
call.
Roll call.
Thank you.
Beauchamp,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
David Miller,
Aye.
Monica Miller,
Yes.
Wynn,
No.
Lilquist.
Yes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to right-of-way uses other than transportation, adding a new chapter entitled 4.14A Streeteries, Parklets, and Sidewalk Cafes to Title IV and recodifying and amending section 4.14.170 Sidewalk Use Permit as section 4.14A.070 Sidewalk Cafe Permits of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. So our next item of business is the Affordable Housing Commission recommendation on sales tax funding and city property contribution for affordable housing project at Catherine Park.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. And what I have before you this evening is a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Commission on a sales tax funding request and property contribution for the city surplus property formerly known as Catherine Park. On November 22nd, 2022, the city received an application from Habitat for Humanity requesting acquisition of the city surplus property and $675,000 in affordable health sales tax funds to develop 10 cottage dwellings, providing home ownership opportunities to low-income families. This process was part of an open process as before we had other propositions come before the commission through request for proposals. We then switched to an open process as people find projects they feel meet the criteria, they're able to submit those. This started with a letter of interest and then was acted on with an actual application. I vetted that application and presented that to the Affordable Housing Commission at their February 8th, 2023 meeting. The Habitat provided that 3 of the units would be provided for those that make less than 60% of the AMI, and then the other 7 units would be for 80% AMI as required through the RCW 82-14-530. The proposal is in kind of a conceptual stage included in your packet, and I can pull up the site plans if need be on here that Habitat proposed for the property. There are some Just a second here. There are some intricacies to this proposal. Sorry, I should have had this ready to go.
First folder, Jamie, I believe.
The council presentation folder or is on the Y drive in mine. It should be the P in here. There it is. I was just looking over the top of it. Thank you. So this is share screen. Thank you. There we go. So this is the rough site plan that was presented as part of the application. Showing this property is 3/4 of an acre in size. It does have some restrictions to it. It's got easements on 3 sides of the property. It also maintains, it's not shown on this, but the access easement, there's an easement across the radio station property to get access to this property, which would be the proposed use for access to the property. It depicts 10 cottages with the requirements of our code, having community open space, can have a maximum of 12 cottages, minimum of 4, maximum of 12. It does show some parking. There were concerns raised at the Affordable Housing Commission meeting about maybe the lack of parking for 10 cottages on such a small piece of property and where additional overflow parking would go. There was also concerns about barriers, landscaping barriers along the sides. This is a residential zoned piece of property and it abuts other residential properties. So our zoning code would not specifically require a zoning buffer or a vegetative buffer, such as if you had a residential up against a commercial use, things of that nature. So they can be added. However, it's not a requirement of the code. One other thing to note is on the north side of the property, I wasn't able to track it down. There was mention of a access easement, a foot access, and it does not show up on the plats from that, as these are old plats, but I was provided this evening before the meeting, a copy of the recorded document that does state that there is a 5-foot walking path from Radio Road to the north side of this property. Now, it used to be maintained. I don't believe it's been maintained in the last few years, but it does exist, which I was not aware of because of the fact we did not do a full title search on this property that this may have shown up, but looking and researching past plats, it's not on any of those recorded plats, but it does exist. So the Affordable Housing Commission welcomed lots of participation. This came before council to be considered for the first time just to surplus the property in the event of looking for a project. The thought was to get a cottage proposal on a piece of property so that we can demonstrate that they are functional, they do work, and maybe get more. This is a piece to trying to a solution for, it's a goal of our housing action plan to get some alternative housing, and the cottage style can be affordable as you share the resources and compile it all together. So we do have a valid application. They did meet all of the criteria in the application and received a favorable recommendation even after hearing from the public, which is always important and welcomed and eye-opening. but has received a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Commission to have council consider and award the property and funding for this particular project. That will conclude my report.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to say a few words before we move to public comment?
Hi, I'm Kelly Vandenberg, Area Director for Kittitas County Habitat for Humanity. Thank you, council, and welcome this evening, and thank you for the neighborhood of Radio Hill for showing up tonight. How do are you still screen sharing? Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll let you drive. Do I have 10 minutes? Then you're up. Huh? Okay.
Oops, we lost your Zooms. Oh, there it is. Jim?
Just make it big.
Yeah, I can't see it. There we go. Sorry. Yours.
Yep.
Okay. Share. And slideshow.
So we're doing this so the folks that are watching on TV can see as well as the folks in this room.
Okay. And let me go back here. So, like I said, I'm Kelly Vandenberg from Kittitas County Habitat for Humanity, and we're here tonight celebrating 30 years of serving this community. Get closer? Yeah. Thank you. It's been 30 years of helping families, of growing together and learning together. In 2019, 2020, we sought a strategic partnership with Seattle King County, and that partnership had strengthened our impact in the community tenfold. Let me give you an example. Prior to the strategic partnership, we were building one home every 18 months. We are now building 18 homes in about 18 months. It has had a significant impact for the community and for the families in this community. I want to talk a little bit about homeownership in this community. Right now, the average price of a home right now, the average sale price is $557,000 in Ellensburg. It jumps up to 1.8 million in Cle Elum and $420,000 in Roslyn. 1 in 7 households spend 50% of their income or more on housing. We are at an affordable housing crisis. In Kittitas County, we have 3 issues that are challenges that we can overcome if we work together. The first is that we have a lack of inventory. We have a lack of affordable housing inventory, and the inventory we have, 1/3 of that was built before 1970, making it unstable and unsafe for the community members. Our second challenge is our income. An average medium income is $47,000, 47.5 really. What is cost burden? If you spend 30% of your income on housing, rent, or mortgage, you are cost burden. Currently in Ellensburg, renters there are 54% of the renters are cost burden. That's an astronomical sum. And our third challenge, as we all know, is we're growing fast. We're working on a plan for making sure that development is managed, and we're getting there. But we are still the 3rd fastest growing county in the Washington state. What does $47,000 a year get you in a house? For $47,000 a year, you can afford a home that's about $190,000. That's about $1,100 to $1,400 for a mortgage payment. Let's go back to that $557,000 is the average price of a home right now in Ellensburg. This math will never add up. What we do at Kittitas County Habitat for Humanity and Seattle King County Habitat for Humanity is we build homes. We build generational wealth through home ownership. We do home repairs. We keep people in their home. We keep their home safe, secure, and we keep their investments strong. And we do it with volunteer recruitment, volunteer labor, and community support. That is what we do. That is who we are. We are part of the community building community. This is a snapshot of our construction project, Stuart Meadows. It is 18 homes. I'm very excited about this because last week we poured concrete and we started laying the foundations for this. This particular neighborhood will have 2 unique floor plans and serve over 80 members of the community when it is done. And it's being built in 3 phases. We're currently working on phase 1. So let's talk about our families. Our families are homeowners. They're your neighbor. They're single moms. They're multi-generational households. And in our first 6 families of Stuart Meadows, we're serving 10 school-age children. They're CWU employees, they're marketing professionals, they're landscapers, they're healthcare workers, they're construction workers. They're everyone's neighbor. But they are homeowners, and they are building generational wealth through equity in homeownership. In order to become a Habitat homeowner partner, you have to demonstrate the need for adequate and affordable housing. That means you have to show that you're cost burdened, that you're living in substandard or overcrowded living situations, or in a temporary living situation. You also have to demonstrate the ability to pay for the home. You have to qualify for a mortgage. Again, these are homeowners. And you have to be willing to partner with Habitat for Humanity. Our homeowners build their homes through 250 hours of sweat equity, neighbor beside neighbor, for the length of the time it takes to build these first 6 homes. These are not just neighbors by the end of it, they're friends. This is building community. And they must be a resident of Kittitas County or live and work in Kittitas County for at least 1 year. I wanted to show you a little bit of what our current pipeline is for Seattle King and Kittitas County. And what I think is important about this is to show the versatility and the variety of homes that are capable through home ownership, not apartment rentals, but building equity and building generational wealth through a variety of different styles of homes in home ownership. And that brings me to Catherine Park, and we are very excited to present a cottage style living. And I think what the most important part of cottage style living is that you have a smaller footprint, you have a very efficient home, but it's community centered, community focused, and community based. You'll notice that the green space is in the center. These homes will have large front porches to encourage that center forward community facing living. These 10 homes will be 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story with flex space for either an office or a small den, built with efficiency living in mind. An ADA option is available, again, with the oversized front porch to encourage that park-like community-centered living. Again, it's going to be close to grocery stores, shopping, and CWU. But most importantly, we're going to be helping 40 individuals in the community build that generational wealth. The most important part of what we do is that building of community, and that community support is critical. We were honored last week to be named 2023 Nonprofit of the Year for Kittitas County. And we are very proud of that because the community has come out in droves to help volunteer and to sign up to volunteer for Stuart Meadows, and they will also for Catherine Park. We could not be here without the support of our volunteers and our donors and the support of this council. thank you so much for all that you have done for us. And I appreciate everything that we look forward to working again on Catherine Park. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there questions for Ms. Vandenberg? Maybe later.
Okay.
Is those are the nicest audience we've had in a while, with all the applause.
Nothing for us.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the issue? You would have three minutes, and if more time is needed after everyone has had a chance. We're going to start with this gentleman.
Thank you. My name is Tim Hennebree. I live on Chamath Lane on the east side of the radio station property. I have 4 brief points to make. First, I wish to make it clear that this is not a NIMBY situation. I support affordable housing, and I'm not opposed to the Catherine Park project per se. But that said, the home should be built with both the long existing neighborhood in mind, as well as the future residents of the proposed project. So the first point is on density. The proposed plan of 10 two-story houses on roughly 3/4 of an acre is in stark contrast with the long-standing housing in the immediate neighborhood. It basically doubles the number of houses that are adjacent to Catherine Park along both Radio Road and Viewpoint Road. So given this density, several issues need to be addressed. First is parking. 10 parking slots proposed will be totally inadequate for these houses. Without the provision of additional parking, both residents and visitors will be forced to park perhaps on Radio Road, the Vantage Highway, or spill over onto the KXLE property. Next, light and noise. It's well known and well established that excess noise and light contribute to detrimental health and well-being of a community. This doubling of density will significantly increase the amount of light and noise. So both can be addressed and reduced substantially if the city and the builder were to use some responsible mitigation. Both light and noise can be reduced to some degree with a green buffer or barrier, which would also, by the way, replace some of the wildlife habitat that will be taken from the park. It is partially a wetland. And I wanted to specifically mention that lighting can be further reduced by using downward facing fixtures rather than the wall pack style mountings on buildings and houses. And outwardly facing street lights, having those downward facing rather than shining out into the Catherine Park residences' own windows or adjoining properties. And finally, safety. I'm looking at the time. For those residents of Catherine Park, and especially for children, traffic control, sidewalks, and crosswalks must be considered along the Vantage Highway. So those are my comments, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roberta Clark at 1003 Chamath Lane. It is quite apparent to me that Ellensburg needs affordable housing. There's no question there at all. However, I expect my representatives on the city council to manage that in a responsible and respectful way. And I think the current affordable housing plan for Catherine Park is a setup for neighborhood disagreement, and I don't think that's respectful. First, there are just 9 established houses near the periphery of the boundary of the park. The current plan allows for adding 10 households, some of them 2-story. This would in effect double the size of the neighborhood without any accommodating infrastructure, like sidewalks or environmental filters, like a green buffer for masking lights, dust, and noise. Doubling the size of a neighborhood is a big change in all the ways that cause disturbance among those living there and trouble for the city and city services. Second, the current parking plan as one for each household is a sure bet for turning Radio Road into a parking lot. Radio Road already has a steep, sharp entrance curve and is narrow enough without cars parking on both sides. Planning for one car for each home when there are second stories in the homes, as if there would only be one adult and no visitors in each place is just trouble waiting to happen. This is a nice little neighborhood, and it could accommodate a very nice plan without the forecast for trouble with the neighbors that the current one offers. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Greenfield?
Just want to say, I think we're very lucky to have Kelly Vandenberg running Habitat for Humanity. So we're not asking you to vote against the Catherine Park Cottage experiment. Sorry, Rich, am I interrupting?
He's reminding me to ask everyone to introduce themselves.
Oh, I'm
when they
sorry.
begin.
Give me a few moments after this then. My name is Stephen Greenfield. I am at 6 Viewpoint Road. Thank you. We're not asking you to vote against the Catherine Park Cottage experiment, but to slightly delay the award in order for planning and Habitat to resolve a few outstanding issues. One thing that I brought to everybody's attention only in the last couple of days is in Habitat's initial site plan, it indicates that the rear setback is 10 feet, but per the R-L zone, it needs to be 20. And this is a significant difference for such a small property. It reduces the available space for those houses by 5 to 10%. I'll come back to that later in a moment. As you heard, there's only these 10 standard size parking spaces. And as the city council is aware, there's a fence enclosed path that exists between Radio Road and Catherine Park between 1304 and 1306 Radio Road, which was created from an easement in 1983. If this path is allowed to remain open, it would guarantee that Radio Road would become a de facto everyday overflow parking lot for Catherine Park residents, guests, and long-term parking of larger vehicles, such as campers and RVs. We request that the city council vote to vacate and release the easement. Tim talked about the green barrier. The very first sentence or second sentence of the city code on the R-L zone says, it's intended to protect and enhance the character of existing low-density residential neighborhoods. And that's one of the reasons why we would like to see some kind of green barrier to reduce that light and noise on the property. By the way, Director Alling is incorrect. There is a requirement for a barrier on the to mask off the parking side of that lot by code. As you know, for Catherine Park to operate safely, there needs to be a crosswalk on University and sidewalks that run from the radio station driveway all the way west to Brick Road. The city shouldn't wait until it suffers liability of an accident from children crossing. So to wrap this up, Mayor Lilquist asked an important question, whether there's a compelling reason to hold this development to any higher standard than any other development. And I would just say this is the first experiment the city has done with cottage style housing, and it's being done with taxpayer funds. And we would like the city council to take a proactive role here and delay this award until the Catherine Park proposal can integrate the appropriate legal setbacks and account for the true space they have. Right now, it's very difficult to know whether that 10 building plan is even possible. May I have 30 more seconds?
Well,
please?
you have the.
I understand.
you can-
I timed it out before I was interrupted
I'm
and
sorry. If
I have one more paragraph.
if there is more time after everyone has had a chance to speak, I will let you come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Greenfield?
Marcia Rorty Greenfield, 6 Viewpoint Road. So this is going to sound quite critical. I'm sorry I've become pushy over time. I'm not normally like that except with Stephen, but things keep adding up and I am feeling upset. I'm grateful that you decided to do this differently from the August 15th meeting. And by the way, this is directed only toward the council, not toward the AHC, and most certainly not to Kelly and Habitat. At the August 15th meeting, everyone who spoke was respectful and in no way attacking, blaming, or accusatory. We were blown away when we were completely ignored. We had gotten notice of a vote to surplus 1 week prior. We spoke and presented. We were shut down. No additional interaction was permitted. After that, and only after that, we saw a specific rendering of the Catherine Park development, which, by the way, we support. We have 4 cottages against our home. You had a brief discussion of the issues where you got some facts wrong, gave us an insult or two directly directed at us. There was a unanimous vote. You were out of here. We were speechless, absolutely speechless, because what was communicated, the only logical thing we could conclude was that we don't matter. Our concerns don't matter. The impact doesn't matter. This needs to be done right. It needs to be done, but do it considering the entire community. We matter. Put yourself in our position. You knew 1 week ahead of time, then you got hit with this. You couldn't speak. That's a setup for bitterness, alienation, and resentment. It's not needed. We had just found out that the character of our neighborhood would radically change. We would bear significant negative impacts. But there we were sitting with it. At that meeting and since, I have had the unnerving sense that you've been willing to make a huge consequential decision without having inspected the parcel carefully. Yes, time. Okay. Love a raise of hands as to who has walked the property and gone around the neighborhood.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the Catherine Park issue? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding Catherine Park?
My name is David Storla. I live at 1301 East Radio Road, so I'm on the north side of Radio Road, but real close to where the development is, obviously. I have more of an issue, I guess, on the livability side of this whole process. I've lived at that residence for almost 43 years. So I have seen the neighborhood obviously change many times. Some of the buildings and houses that are there now were not there when I first moved there, and so on and so forth. I also have seen the environment change from area where there was people, family with children, to a point now where there's hardly any children in the area at all. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that the immediate area around that project is houses of 1 story. Whereas this project, it will be 2 stories, which will obviously change some of the parameters of the area. I'm also concerned about the aspect of this project of the amount of space that is there for families, for children. As I understand, I believe that the size of the projects is up to 6 people per unit, which would probably mean at least 2 or 3 children. If you get that multiplied by the number of units, you're going to have a lot of children in that common area where there's no park for them to play in nearby. And so there's some issues along those lines. Another issue that I think will appear, obviously the parking that we've talked about, but I'm also wondering if there isn't going to be a situation with dogs. With all the people coming in, there's going to be some dogs in the area. That's going to create a lot of extra noise from that aspect. I also think that there's be some noise issues from the traffic on University Way that I'm concerned a little bit about. Hopefully that those units will have some extra sound barriers to take care of that. The other part, I guess, is that it changes the complexion of the neighborhood to some degree, and change is fine, okay? But it's one of those things that will be a big change to the area because most of the residents in the area are middle-aged or later or retirees like I am, with very few places where there's children. So the neighborhood is going to change a lot. We have to adjust to some of that. One final thing that applies to me in particular is that with the 2-story places, I will probably lose my last visage to the south.
Yeah, your time is up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, sir?
You, Mayor and Council. My name is Del Barrett. I live on Radio Road, just 2 houses down from the prior speaker. I'm very familiar with this path because I use it often. And most of the time when you walk through there, I would say almost year long, there's a lot of water in, I would say probably 1/3 of that property. So I have to have my boots on certain times of the year to get through there. And the other thing that the density concerns me, but also the Cowboys are going to be upset because that's one of their parking places at Rodeo. So that's the really thing I'm concerned about. We're a close community. And I was disappointed not to find out about this process within the last 24 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about Catherine Park? Ma'am.
Hello, I'm Liz Scully. I'm at 1304 East Radio Road, so I'm just to the north of that of Catherine Park. And I just had, I'm the one who actually brought forth that document showing that the city does own the easement between my house and 1306. And I think that that area is going to get a lot more foot traffic because of the lack of planning for parking. And I would really like if that area was closed off and because there's a lot of concern about parking and people will be parking on Radio Hill. There's not a lot of area for parking there. There's a lot of parking in front of mailboxes. So that's going to be a big concern. And foot traffic in the evenings, right? This is going right between 2 houses. And so I don't think that that's safe that people are going to be walking in between our houses. And there's the problem with noise going in between our 2 houses. I am looking forward to having more young people in the community, more families there. But I do want it to be safe for them as well. So I do think there's a huge problem with parking. There's no sidewalks planned so far. So that really needs to be looked into. And another neighbor asked if that easement were to stay open, which I would really hope that it didn't, if that could be changed into RPZ parking. I really don't think that it would be wise to have parking up there as we heard. I think a lot of overflow parking will be up there. So that's my big concern. I also am concerned for the wildlife area back there. You know, it is such a wetland right now. The amount of red-winged blackbirds and just birds of all kinds that are back there is huge. Like it's wonderful boosting you know, so much wildlife back there. And so that really makes me sad that that is going to be taken away. And the control of the flooding back there, I understand that some piping is to be planned, but I don't know how that's really going to be enough to control the amount of flooding. Last year, our whole backyard flooded. Yeah, so there are definitely huge water issues there that need to be taken into account as well. So thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Sir.
Hello, my name's Larry Whiteman. I live on Viewpoint Road, just across from Steve Greenfield. We were discussing today some details about this project, and it really did occur to us just how critically important the safety issues are going to be around pedestrian traffic coming and going from this community out onto University. Right now, there are no sidewalks along the side of the highway where the project is going to occur. And we thought that I don't see any way around not putting a sidewalk in for safety all the way from Brick Road all the way to Benning, and that's going to be quite an expense, but I think that it's going to be needed, along with the safety blinking lights to allow people to cross over, and also people will be parking along the university, right, because there's no signs that indicate otherwise on the north side of the highway. Anyway, these are all things we wanted to bring up because the safety is a big deal to us, especially for the kids. So we also are concerned about the flow of traffic with respect to the easement that Liz was talking about. Because without that and people parking up on Radio Hill, they're going to want to probably go through our properties along Viewpoint Road, and that is a concern. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I'm going to give Mr. Greenfield another few minutes then.
Thank you. Just going to wrap up what I was suggesting, which was this is a unique project, and taxpayer funds are being used, and there are a number of issues that we've identified. That's one of the reasons we're asking you to look at this a little differently than a general development you've done. So what we're asking is that City Council just delay the award until the initial Catherine Park proposal can integrate the appropriate legal setbacks and account for the true amount of space they have once they have all the utility easements considered. Right now, it's difficult to know if the 10 building plan is even possible. 8 cottages, however, might give residents more common green space, provide parking for delivery and emergency vehicles, and would allow for a buffer to plant surrounding greenery. And finally, there was a suggestion from a city council member that residents want what we want. Yes, residents want reduced visual and noise disruption to protect and enhance the character of our existing low-density residential neighborhood and to prevent the loss of property value. Yes, to prevent that. And to provide for the safety of future Catherine Park residents when crossing and walking down University Way. The only way these things will happen is if you, the city council, have the courage to act on everyone's best interest, because we've been told by the city and the Affordable Housing Commission, that only you can make these decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marcia Rhodey, Greenfield, 6 Viewpoint. We get that you have a lot of constraints and we cannot and don't expect to be accommodated in every way. However, what I have heard each time I have spoken with a member of the council is that we are asking for special treatment. And for example, with safety, that we're holding it to a higher standard. I want to suggest that when you visit the parcel, and I hope you do, stand at the entrance to the park, look left at the blind rise. There are police cars, people are speeding, look right, there's a curve. Then consider kids. They look across the street. Would you go to a grassy area with little kids and maybe dog poop? Or would you take your soccer ball across the street? Might be illegal. There is a soccer field there. So here is what I have heard that tells me that so far there is not much interest in working with us. The first one is regarding issues that I've raised regarding my family. I mentioned the danger, severe danger our son poses to the residents and them to him. However, here's what I heard. Marcia, you keep repeating yourself. You want special treatment for your family. They don't mention a disability. My concerns as a parent, the risk to new residents. It's easy to trivialize this when you don't say disability. In this particular month, I feel unwelcome, invisible, and unwanted. Next, if it were a private developer, they wouldn't care, and it's not. You're demanding, not requesting special treatment. You want what you want. Of course, we're making requests. You want what you want. Work with us. Please don't shine us on. Treat us like reasonable people who are worthy of respect. And don't insult us. Hopefully we'll treat you that way. Other comparable things. It is, our requests are entirely reasonable to learn that they are entitled, special.
You need to wrap it up, please.
I strongly disagree. I have a severe problem with it, and I do not like killing.
Thank you. So last call, is there anyone else who would like to speak about Catherine Park? Okay, Council, do you have questions for staff or anyone who spoke?
Go ahead, I have a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nancy.
I have some questions of staff. Jamie, can you clarify and give us more information about the flooding problem that's been mentioned several times?
I can touch on that. There is on the north side of that property, that's one of those easements. It's a 10-foot irrigation easement. It is currently an open ditch. A lot of times those take on extra water and overflow, and it spreads out on an open property. So it is an open ditch. It can be piped. And usually with piping of irrigation tends to dry things up.
Is that part of the plan to mitigate the flooding potential back there?
I have to look into that deeper with the actual developers, not in the current proposal, but you would almost ultimately need to, that would be the only way to address it and deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow up on that, so there are storm detention
There's a
regulations.
storm retention requirement for development. They have to retain the 25-year storm event on site.
And I mean, I didn't see where that was, but it will be in the
You can
final.
incorporate those with swales. The green space can double as play area.
Yeah, okay.
So
I guess my questions are surrounding the design review phase, and what I'm trying to understand is what we're being asked to do is move forward this process of similar to what we've done with the community garden project to allow the applicant to move forward with the project. I guess my question is, and it seems a little bit similar to the conversation we had with the community garden proposals. So the issues that have been raised here tonight are valid, all. And I think the question that comes to mind is, how much leverage does the city have if this were to be approved in terms of the intent, but to really bore down into those design details? From your perspective, I guess that's kind of my question. What is the process that the city would use to try to refine the concept if that was appropriate? Or is it just a blanket approval, go forward and we'll go through permit review later, or?
not necessarily, no. We have the purview to get finite and specific as far as some of those requirements, parking. We do have our land development code, which is our minimum standards that it would need to meet. A project of this nature with 10 units would trigger the environmental threshold, so it would not be exempt, and it would require a SEPA review, which also allows a comment, a public comment portion, and can implement and bring up concerns that could be mitigation factors implemented in that. So,
Yeah.
But as far as the blanket approval, I think that's what's being asked, is they're presenting a plan to utilize the property and funding, and factoring in that funding spread over. Does it pencil out for council to be responsible with $675,000 spread over 10 units, 8 units? Where do you start tipping the scale that they're? Do you reduce that
Right.
amount?
I
Things like
guess,
that.
and I don't want to go into, I don't want to use this time to ferret out all the design details, but they are important in the decision-making process. I guess what I'm wondering is, so if the discussion about density, about parking, and I understand minimum standards and code, but this is a pilot project. It's never been done before. I think we have some flexibility in our design. The question I have is, these workings back and forth between the city, who is currently the landowner, and the applicant, Habitat, would be ongoing at the staff level, I assume. But would it be your expectation that a refined design would come back to the council for final approval at some future point before the project moves forward? I mean, I'm asking because
I think
Thinking
it's
back to
definitely
our last-
within the purview of council to require something of that nature.
well, I don't know where the council stands on that, but it seems to me that the issues that have been raised are valid and some of them, to your point about the flooding, have been considered. Maybe the details haven't been locked in yet because it hasn't been fully designed.
Sure.
But I think to the community's point, which has been made repeatedly, there've been issues raised. I think the issue about the pedestrian easement has been raised. It's been suggested that that be vacated. I think that's reasonable, given although it is interesting that the connectivity that was desired in one direction isn't desired in the other direction. I find that interesting. But beside that point, I guess the safety side of the discussion, what is, from the city's perspective, where are we with half-street improvements on University or Vantage Highway in terms of this if we just think of this access point down to Brick Road, for example, where does that fit in?
With the development on this particular property, the developer would be required to install those curb gutter sidewalk half-street improvements along the frontage of that property.
Okay. But
So
that
there
doesn't-
would be a gap from the end of this frontage to Brick Road.
Okay, so that's a gap. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so I guess that's to be determined in terms of future council weigh-ins. I think one of the, and this is a better, I think, process than I felt we had with the community garden process. I think the Affordable Housing Commission has done good work in trying to work through a concept. But there's still clearly some need for some feedback loops and closures with the neighbors and community.
I do think there is value because of the fact I can appreciate the standpoint of an applicant, Habitat in this case. They haven't been guaranteed or awarded a project or funding, and so they have retained an architect to do a rough design, but then that would get refinement. I couldn't do a building permit review or site plan review based off of that exact, what I have, the drawing in the file. It roughly fits. We've done other renderings that know that more than that fit, but that shrinks the size of the units from, rather than 1,200 square foot units, down to like the 600 square foot range. So there are trade-offs.
And I do appreciate from the applicant standpoint that this isn't, sort of, I mean, just moving things around on a piece of paper isn't nothing. And at some point, the project is either viable or it isn't. And even reducing density could impact that. I get that, but those are the conversations that need to be had. And I don't want to presume anything for the applicant. I think that's the conversation. So yeah, I'll stop talking, but that was my take.
Mr. Elliott,
Doing questions, right?
questions? Not talking.
Okay,
I do both.
sorry. So, parking.
Yeah.
We leave this alone. It didn't apply any additional requirements. Assuming this was a private development, can you get away with one unit per a residential? One parking space per residential unit?
For our code, yes. With
So,
this.
so let me follow up on that, though. In traditional development, that would be, there would be on-street parking available to 10 homes. I'm
Yep.
just saying, our
Yes.
code may not anticipate cottage
Correct.
housing well enough.
It gives it incentivizes with some of these similar to ADUs that are incentivized by not requiring additional parking. You get to count densities of 2 cottages equal 1 dwelling unit. So for our code. So that's where you get into some of these.
Go ahead.
What's the requirement for apartments?
Apartments depend on the number of bedrooms. So studios are 1.2 parking stalls per unit, unless it's in the CC zone, they're 0.7 for those apartments per unit.
So like a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment.
And you're looking at
requires 2 to 3.
1.5 per.
With
And
this is probably more of a question for Rich than anybody. Is this even up to fire code with having the housing where they're at and not having a vehicle access point to be able to get there?
put out a fire in one of these back units?
Possibly and possibly not. Have to calculate it.
And then if we voted on this tonight, it would not solidify this design, or is that something that we would have to correct before voting on this?
It would not necessarily solidify to the exact location, but we would be looking at 10 units, roughly this design.
Can
I ask another parking question?
Sure.
If I were to visit somebody that lived here, where would I park?
There's a lot downtown, and then you take the commuter.
You can park on Radio Road.
Um,
How far of a, okay,
There actually isn't, if every space was full with the residential parking, then there is not on site with this current depiction a free spot to park.
so just process wise, what we're moving forward with tonight, or potentially we're moving forward is a commitment letter. We can make modifications to what we would like to commit to. Is that true, or would it be better to just indicate what we would like to see and then have that come back?
So I'll answer that one. And the commitment letter is your conceptual agreement, and what staff use that commitment letter to do is to move forward with a formal agreement with Habitat for the funding and the distribution or the land development. So our encouragement as staff, if you were to change the conditions, you can put additional conditions on the development, for instance, to come back to council at a particular point. But this would be the point that you would make that decision if you're going to move forward with it tonight.
Right. Can I ask about the setbacks?
Yes.
So it's been represented that it should be a 20-foot setback,
Our rear setback is 20 foot now.
what's rear, which ones?
Exactly. It's based off of where it's addressed. It'd be addressed off of university. So the university would be your front. Radio Road side, the north side would be your rear. And then so you will have rear facing units, but they won't necessarily have a 20-foot rear setback. They would have a 5 and 10 is our requirement for the R for that zone. You get 5-foot side setback on one side and 10 on the other, and you choose which side is 5 and which side is 10.
Okay,
So it's not,
that confused me.
Mhm. because it's one lot. So you can put multiple buildings on there, but you're 20 foot from the north, 20 foot from the south, 5 foot from the east, 10 feet from the west,
Is there
or
any
vice versa.
averaging?
No.
Okay. So the rear setback has to be 20 feet, and were the drawings made with that in mind?
It's questionable. I know that it can fit, knowing the dimensions of the physical dimensions of, I don't believe they're depicted because those are 10-foot easements on north, west and south side of that property. It showed to the dash line on the watercolor rendering. So, but there is, in the actual physical dimension, there is room to meet, and it would be required to meet the 20-foot.
Okay. I also wanted to ask about dark sky fixtures. Isn't that part of our code
Understand.
already?
That is, it is. still
Okay.
factored.
And so get the Gateway project and the planned sidewalks. Is that on the east?
Gateway
Where does
2
that run
starts
from?
at Vista and goes out to the far city limits. It does not, there is a gap from Vista to Brick Road. There's sidewalks on Fanning on the corners, but
So Vista East.
Correct. Is the current gateway to.
Okay. As part of the development process and permitting, would engineering be looking at any of those offsite issues with the sidewalk connectivity?
We do look at those. A lot of the times it's safe walking routes to school projects. We are always in search of funding. That's how we got grant funding to do the rest of the sidewalk project. So we do have a very good team here that searches for as much public funding as we can find to do projects of that nature. If it were to trigger something, usually it's like through a traffic impact analysis that we require. And if those dictate improvements, that's what we lean on, not just we think it's a good idea. It's got to be based on some trigger or.
And I had one more, but, actually, if Kelly, questions for Kelly.
Could I have a comment?
Okay,
But I can,
we'll finish
after Kelly.
questions.
No, it's fine. Whatever. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay, yeah, Beck. Why don't we go ahead and answer?
I was just trying to save Jamie some leg time up and down. So
It's okay.
thank you. Sorry about that. A couple follow-ups. Do you know approximately the distance from the southwest corner of this parcel to Brick Road that will not be covered with sidewalk? Roughly? Is it as long or longer than the frontage that this parcel has? Would you?
It's probably a little bit longer.
Okay. And then one question you mentioned in the presentation, the primary access, the concepts show a new 90-degree, roughly on the curve, 90-degree point coming in off of Vantage or University. But the current access that goes to the radio station is there. And the plan would not be to have two curb cuts that close together, I assume. So my question is the concept going to be changed and use the common access that's there now?
That would be preferable. We would verify that with our engineering division, but that is a fairly steep embankment and it gets steeper the further you get down University Way. So
Right. So there's
it is a
vertical.
safer configuration to have one driveway, and that's why we have the easement across there,
Okay.
which could potentially open up an opportunity for
Okay.
additional parking.
I just a couple other things. Could you clarify again, the irrigation easement, is that within the boundary of the parcel or is it beyond the north boundary of the parcel?
It's within the boundary of the parcel,
And that's
0.75 acres.
presumably the part of this 20-foot setback, the rear setback?
Correct. It would incorporate 10 feet
10
is the
feet.
easement. We don't have to go to 20 feet from the edge of
Yeah.
that.
At the risk of offering design guidance, which I don't want to do, I would say, I think that my general impression is the density is too high.
So questions only.
But the question goes to how do we incorporate changes into the process? Density, fire access turnarounds, for example, and additional parking if we chose to do that. The question is how does that get accomplished? If that's what the council wanted to do. And I'm not speaking for the council, I'm just asking.
Fire access would be addressed with the design review. And so that one, it has to be code compliant. We require to be in compliance with building code, the land development code, and the international fire code. So that one,
yeah.
I
I was just thinking about
concerned.
turnarounds for the vehicles. That's primarily.
That's in Appendix D of the
Okay,
fire
okay.
code that we have adopted.
But
So
I guess the follow-up question would be, based on this concept, do you think those have been factored into the design?
I believe that they can be. I don't believe that it meets the hammerhead that could easily be installed on the north end of that.
Okay,
I think,
that's good.
I think what, if the council wants to add conditions, we just need to state that and then staff can get it into the letter of commitment. So if we want to make changes to what we have said, which was we want about 10 units and I don't think we need to redesign things, but if we say we want to add parking, we can say that and recognize that it may mean we need, that will reduce the number of units. Is that, am I correct on that? That's correct. So, okay, so Kelly. I'm wondering if you anticipate the project will be fenced and what the landscaping would look like.
So initially, this project started for us when we submitted the concept application in September of last year. And conversation prior to that, the number of units that we had received from council, they were looking at 12 to 14 units on that property, right? So we reduced that down to 10 to try and accommodate parking. So that's where we started with this concept. I think from this point on, any of the, and this was long prior to any of the community concerns being addressed. So we're open to looking at those concerns, making sure that this is going to be within code and going to meet with certainly parking and density and making sure that the application that is submitted has more of a complete design, less conceptual. But again, when we submitted this, it was very conceptual in its thinking. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, so I'm the neighbors have asked for landscaping.
Sure.
Do
A mature 20-foot tree costs about $1,500.
Right.
Right? It's 3 sides. If you factor in 30 trees, you're looking at about 50 grand. That's 4 roofs on a home. So we can look at adding greenery. We can look at that. The plans itself, I mean, the community cottage space has green space built into it. That's part of the requirements for a cottage design, is that green space. Part of that concept is not necessarily making sure that there's green space for the neighbors as well. So it would have to be looked at, but it is going to add costs. And it's an affordable housing project and we're a nonprofit. So we will have to look at that. Maybe there's some community that can lean in to help us solve that, but it's certainly going to add a cost burden onto Habitat if we had to address that.
Well, okay. Trees grow. I mean,
Well, I know, but the letter of concerns requested requested mature green space.
right. What about fence and were you anticipating having access to Radio Road?
No. No.
So I guess we may need to do more research on that easement. It may have, as I understand it, I mean, maybe it's still valid and maybe it's been vacated already. We need to do more research, but if it were there, do you see any value in keeping it?
I would have to research that more with my team specifically. There's value in areas that we can find additional parking. It doesn't sound to me like that's what the neighbors would like in that region. It also sounds like they would like that closed off. I don't see a need for the community of Catherine Park to head into Radio Hill through that easement at this point in time. But again, it's something I would want to look at for the team, particularly as we're looking at the flooding situation, which I think we should spend a lot more time talking about. Jamie. But yeah, I mean, I think there's ways to work with the community on that.
Is there anyone else who has additional questions? So is there a motion?
How specific do we need to be?
this motion?
Well,
We had a motion asking Habitat in development to address parking issues.
so we could, I think, move to generally accept the commitment letter with certain stipulations of certain things being addressed, or we could ask that certain things be addressed to move to hold on the letter until certain modifications are made to the conceptual design, which is, I think, what we did for the community gardens property.
Correct. And staff would ask that you be very specific about what those conditions are.
So
So would you like that? Would you like a list of conditions to be just part of the motion, or do you want to have a conversation about what we could agree on would be the conditions? If we can agree, for further conversation between the applicant
I
and
think we
staff.
need to agree on the conditions so that we have clear direction
Yeah.
for staff to move forward.
So do we want to just do a straw poll on what we agree should be part of the motion before we make the motion? Or do we want to try to do it as we go along? I can give you 4 specific things I'd like to see. I'm not prepared to say exactly what they should be in the design world, but I would like those to be evaluated by staff and the applicant, if that helps.
Okay, why don't you, go shoot.
And I'll put it, the order, number 1, I think, I believe, and again, subject to further staff review, I would support vacating the pedestrian access easement on the north of the parcel. Number 2, I would ensure that the circulation concept provides for whatever emergency access for Hammerhead or whatever emergency vehicle design is needed, just to make sure, because it will affect the placement of the dwellings and the parking. So that I do think that we should expand the parking. I would encourage the idea of adding parallel parking to the access lane on the east side and pushing the development a little bit west. And I think when that happens, along with the other things, we might be forced to reduce the density. But again, I'm not trying to design it. I'm just trying to think, these are the things that have been raised that I think are valid. So those are the 4.
I got 3.
Density is last, which comes as a follow-up to all the others. So presumably, if you squeeze the development down by adding parking, by enforcing the setbacks, you're going to have less buildable area. That either means you stack the houses on top of each other or you cut down on the number of units. And I don't know what is the magic number for habitat. I don't want to presume that, but I'd like that conversation to happen and see what's feasible.
I'll give it a shot. Madam Mayor, I move that we,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
oh wait, what were you thinking?
Well, I mean, David has articulated 4 things he would like to see. I agree with parking. I'm not sure. I just would say there needs to be 15 to 20 spaces at least. And I don't know if your parallel parking on the other side gets that.
That's 15 or 20 sounds better than 10. If you want to be that specific, I'd like it to be based on something more than, part of it is what can we fit?
I don't care where they put them. I
Right,
mean, if they
right.
can put them
Yeah.
there, then fine.
Well, I think that's fine. If
And
that's,
and
that's the direction.
And if we have to reduce, I'm on board, if we have to reduce by one cottage, then we have to, but we want this demonstration project to demonstrate success. And I don't
Yeah.
think that it will if there's ongoing parking
Oh, I agree.
problems.
I agree.
Um,
I would add on that, the one thing I didn't mention because I don't think it's incumbent on the applicant to do this, is that this gap in pedestrian activity. If we think about our approach to connectivity and bicycle pedestrian that we try to implement in every project we do, we generally encourage connectivity between neighborhoods. We intentionally try not to have cul-de-sacs where people can't get to the adjacent neighborhood. This is kind of like a big cul-de-sac. I get that, but in my mind, it mandates that we have full pedestrian access along Vantage Highway. And that, I get, doesn't fall on the applicant. I think it's going to be one of those things that the city was going to have to look at what our options are for prioritizing that, closing that gap. Otherwise, we will have people walking from the sidewalk onto the unpaved shoulder of the road. So that's
And
not.
yeah, they do
habitat
that
issue.
in my neighborhood, but it's not so busy.
Oh, right,
Not a busy
right.
street going
Yeah,
40 miles an
right,
hour.
with an open ditch
I,
next to
I
the
see
road.
staff eager to say something.
Yeah, and so we're talking about the options here, and it sounds like there are a number of items that council would like worked out. If we're looking at 4 separate conditions, the letter was written based on the application from
Right.
Habitat with those specific conditions. So if there are items, more than one, maybe more than 2 that need to be worked out in advance, our recommendation would be to ask staff to go back and clarify so we can do some additional research on the easement, on accessibility, and provide some feedback before awarding the letter at a future meeting.
That works for me.
So,
Thank you.
and I agree, we shouldn't move forward until these things are clarified. I guess to David's point about the access easement, if it were to exist, I would argue for keeping it. Take care of the parking so that they're not using Radio Road for parking, but I am certain that there is going to be someday a 9-year-old in the Catherine Park neighborhood who wants to play with a 9-year-old on Radio Road. And I don't want that 9-year-old to have to go out onto University Way and up Brick Road and then down Radio Road to get to his playmate's house, if there were an easier, more direct way. But I understand the neighborhood's concerns with that, and I don't know. And 5 feet is not generally enough for the access easements these days, but so
And I would.
that's just a discussion
Yeah.
that we can have.
I'd like to have that conversation too.
Rich, did you have something?
No.
Okay, Monica? Or Sarah, do you?
Are we in comment
do you-
land or
Yeah,
questions?
we are giving direction to staff on things that we need to incorporate into a revised letter of commitment.
Yeah, well, I would say I'm still, yes, I agree. I feel like we need more parking. So I'm in agreement there, and I am still unclear as to the impact of keeping or removing the easement. So I would like more clarity on that.
Okay. Adam, do you have any?
No, it would just be parroting with Mr. Miller here.
Okay. Is that?
Right. So just to clarify, what I heard was explore the pedestrian access issue and review circulation and also find some additional parking.
So we have no, we are giving direction to staff. Do you think we need to vote on that?
I thought we were gonna vote on, I don't agree with some of these conditions.
Okay.
Fire one happens regardless. I mean, there's nothing we can do to overrule it. So-
Red flag, red card,
Oh, yellow, it's
Yellow,
only
not
yellow.
red.
yellow.
If
Still
you
the
could
game.
speak, if you could speak to that, clarify it for us so we don't waste anybody's time. That'd be my request for staff.
Yeah, fire code exists regardless of what we choose to do. We can't overrule the fire code. So it doesn't need to be a condition in a letter to Habitat.
Yeah, my point on that was simply that the concept does not appear to show And you're the expert. You tell us if that access looks adequate to you, it'll be dealt with later eventually. I'm just saying it, I want to make sure it is per the code. We're not trying to usurp the code, but that was my only concern. And because it has been raised and I don't know what a fire truck needs to turn around up in there.
So we still have, so the direction is to explore the easement access and whether we can talk again about whether that should be vacated or if it already is. And we want to add additional parking spaces for residents and guests. And if that means reducing the density, so be it. Is that, and then we recognize that the sidewalk on University Way, other than the frontage, is a city responsibility, not the applicant's. So it's not part of the letter.
And we don't have funding for it.
And we don't have funding and there's, yeah.
As a matter of clarification, I guess from a staff perspective and for Jamie and Kelly discussing these issues, what would be to discuss parking, what would be brought back that would be within council's?
My goal
direction?
would be 20 spaces. I guess that seems reasonable to me.
If they're 10.
For 10 units that have potentially, I mean, a lot of families have 2 cars. If they have teenagers, some families have 5 cars. I mean, potentially people will only have 1 car but there needs to be something for guests.
Yeah, I'm just asking so that. staff
And,
is-
and if it can be on KXLE property, or if, something can be negotiated, that's awesome, but I just,
Parking places per unit.
that's what it would be.
So it'd be either 20 with 10 or 16 if they had to reduce. It would be 2 per unit regardless of how many units.
Oh, sure, if they reduce the units, they can reduce the parking spaces to 2 per unit. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
It sounds like a lot of parking, but given this is kind of an island without
There's
connectivity, I think
there's no street to park
there's no
on.
street to park on, right? So it isn't, that's why I think. And I think to Terry's point, did I interpret that as you're not quite sure how this process unfolds?
No,
council
I just
input?
want to make sure that if we're going to ask staff to bring back a revised design with more parking, what more means.
Okay, and. Okay, and the access issue gets. The easement is investigated or explored, right?
Without knowing the code, obviously, when I heard the ratio for the apartments for 2 to 3 bedrooms like that, there was like 1.7 for 2 bedrooms, right? Seems like everyone should have, every unit could have 2 and then some public access parking. So they wouldn't be designated per unit. Is that an option? Am I getting too
So
specific?
you're suggesting more than 2 units per 2 spaces per unit?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that code is for, it was like 1.7 or something, but depending on the size of the units, because they're different.
That was for multifamily
Houses are 1.
houses or 1,
Houses are 1. Oh, okay.
but most houses have street access, straight to parking.
Mhm. So could that be maintained that the homes each get 1 and there's public parking designated as part of communal parking? Then everyone's fighting over it. I don't know. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
It's midnight where I am.
Oh. Well, thanks for being here.
Well, I'm okay with the target of whatever it is, 16 to 20, but I think we can still have some flexibility depending on what comes back in the design.
And Marcia, I apologize if I did not handle the August meeting well enough that you felt respected. But that would be on me, so. So we're going to move on because I think we have direction. Thank you all for being here and next item is a notice of intent to commence annexation proceedings for parcels on Anderson Road. One,
2 hour break.
Been 2 hours.
it has been 2 hours. Actually, Jamie, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Because the union guy said that it's been 2 hours and we have to have a break.
Fine, you might wonder why I'm going like this.
So. We do the, yeah,
What's that?
annexations are under this topic, and then we go back.
We go after 11, after the 2, and then we do the last 2. Yeah, got a ways to go. Yeah. No. Oh, sure. I appreciate. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for consideration. I'm waiting for it now, but I'm looking at a new levy that we did down there. And it filled up, it wasn't actually had that. Diverted inches of the creek was actually right up against the bridge, almost at one of the park with, and the levy by was starting to get water flowing from all the radio station. And then like the days of being so close. So I don't know what that's. Those things have to do. It was in that. I mean, from the tower falling over or the electrical pulses. I've never seen anything we have to see. It sits low today, so. I do know that there's an interesting tower. This is.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. this will be a test.
Yeah, it probably is.
That's good.
But I understand that we is being sold, close in 60 days, so. I'm not sure if they're gonna sell off that land to developers or whether.
They're buying it and
It's already
shutting it down or they're.
Don't know if it's being shut down. I just want to neighbors found out that a group can see out of that lot. The radio station. I do hope they can look forever. I mean, some sort of, you're right. The triggerability. Kelly is fabulous. We sat down with our really vibe. She's a bigger. You know, this isn't going to be some kind of.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, the restroom.
It's gonna happen. You can ask a question.
Questions to.
I'm sorry. I will. On that.
Yeah.
Throw something in.
Yeah, I don't know. There's always got to be one in the class, right?
I'll be here. I'm going.
Oh, good God, somebody printed out their packet.
Yeah. Oh, scary.
And that is so fast, it just has to be productive.
So you're gonna do the.
Did you get your, are you pulling up maps or anything like that? Are you pulling up maps for the second piece? Okay, yeah, that might be helpful.
Want to let you know by the law.
And I had to do the same thing, JB.
That's okay.
I couldn't find the folder.
Yeah,
Not the team of the past.
heat of the moment is like, I know it was on there, but
Baylor's been having a run in a lot of sports, so it's
No.
probably time for them to sit down.
Yeah. The men are still in it, though. Okay. That's one really good news.
So there's nothing I need to do for that. Just show up and.
No. Where you want them?
I can remember, it's in my truck. I usually take my car.
Sweater.
It's kind of warm today.
I didn't.
think more on it than that. Introduce yourself to Jeremy.
Okay, are we ready? So again, we're at item 11B, page 640.
ready. All right. So thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jamie Ailing with Community Development Department. And what I have before you on this particular item is a notice of intent to commence annexation proceedings for 13 parcels. These are all owned by MTA Holdings, so one parcel ownership. It's roughly 105 acres and it's I do have a map pulled up here with not only proposed but suggested, and I'll go through these boundaries. The area that is being proposed is highlighted in blue. It's along Anderson Road, Tanham Road on the south, and then the boundaries, the park over here along Tanham Road on the west property boundary. These are owned by, like I said, MTA Holdings, aka Anderson Hay and Grain. And they have signed this. They have 100%. There are some oddities. We do have one city-owned piece of property, which is the rear entrance into our city shops that is not part of the notice of intention, but would be a suggested addition. Along with that are two parcels that are not owned by MTA Holdings, that is owned by Mr. Charles Fisher. Contact has been attempted. I've spoken with the renter, the tenant of the house, but have not made contact with Mr. Fisher to include him. The other area, I don't know how to get this part off the screen or even. Oops.
Is it possible to take the,
It really is.
okay,
Yeah, that off of there.
that's good.
I got it close enough. The other piece, there are 5 parcels down here. Comprising of about 2 acres total. Of the 5 parcels, there's 2 houses on it. And this gentleman, I actually met with him today. I was finally able to connect with that property owner, Mr. Bonke. And he wasn't willing to actually sign on to the annexation. He's got his self set up. He's on a fixed income and he's concerned that the coming into the city wouldn't benefit him. It would just increase his taxes is what he felt would occur. I did do kind of a quick little run on that and there would be potentially an increase on annual taxes for that but not a huge amount, but it would potentially increase on there. It is because we would be annexing across the interstate. This yellow line is our current city limits, which follows this blue area and back down and around. So it is really questionable whether it would be recommended to include that. There is an RCW that allows us to absorb additional property owners that don't sign as long as you're over 60% of the assessed value, which Anderson's property in itself carries enough value to be more than the 60% to include these additional properties in the annexation. The comprehensive plan designation on this property is a mixture of industrial, and then there's a couple of areas that is considered industrial residential, one of those being Mr. Bonke's properties. And then the other, there are a couple houses along Anderson Road down by Tanum. The first two in contain houses. They contain a industrial residential designation in our comp plan. So when it comes down to zoning, we would recommend zoning excuse me, the major portion of this property as industrial, and the balance with that contains the residences in RM is what is suggested in our comp plan for a zone that's adequate to be consistent with that industrial residential zone. This property currently is not served. I'm going to go back. This one's a little better. It's currently not served with utilities. We do have a project in the pipeline to install a sewer line down Anderson Road, Tanum. There is a water service right about the very city limits, and a weird service that comes up in this general vicinity, but the properties themselves are not served. We would find it difficult to get utilities over here. It's not impossible, but it would be something that would be dependent on the development in future needs for that. The other highlight of this as far as impacts is upon annexation, we would be including road right of way that we currently don't have in our inventory, the southern portion of Anderson Road, Tanum Road, both lanes. You go to the far side of the road with annexations. So we would be including about 2 miles of laneway, counting both lanes. It would potentially help our cause with the sewer project to have that all within our right of way. It would have been even more beneficial had we done it a year ago. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Other questions for Mr. Ailing?
Yes, I do. So when you calculated the taxes, there was a small difference. You didn't calculate in the fact that you go from a 6 to a 4 for fire protection class, so they get a reduction in their insurance rates.
That is correct.
If
So
you're
those
inside
are
the city limits, you pay significantly lower fire insurance rates.
correct. There are some trade-offs. It probably would be a wash for the gentleman.
Then no, I'll wait for that.
Just clarification, we set the boundary tonight, and the
Yes.
planning commission can reduce the boundary recommendation or we can at a later time if the gentleman feels strongly about not coming in, right?
There are, yes, I should have gone through the process. This is to set the boundaries. We cannot add on to it to add additional properties. Once the boundaries are set, we can reduce it, but we also have to be mindful that we cannot create islands in doing so. So we would have to make sure any reduction that we do, and it would go to the planning commission, would be, the next step would be, once this is set, for the applicant to submit the petition to annex. This is the notice of intent that they submitted saying they want to come in. Council authorizes it, sets the boundaries, determines whether they require the assumption of all city indebtedness and directs the adoption of zoning to be considered by the planning commission at a public hearing. And then after the public hearing at the planning commission, it gets set for a public hearing in front of council. So you'll see this again. And annexations are done through ordinance. Therefore, we require 2 readings. So the first reading could be done at the conclusion of the first public hearing at council. There's required 2 hearings in an annexation process, and they have to be at least a minimum of 30 days apart between hearings. So that's kind of the procedure.
Thank you. David?
Clarification, apologize if you've covered this. You mentioned, I think in your presentation that the primary recommended zone would be IL for the industrial, and then did you say RM for residential?
For all the industrial pieces, so the exception would be on the south, so the Bonke property, if it's included, because it does have the industrial residential designation in our comp plan. That could be RM.
Okay, I guess I was trying to follow along on your staff report on the bottom of page
It's-
641. It says IL, but it doesn't say
It
anything.
does,
about
and
it.
I had to amend my statement here in my verbal presentation once I realized that it wasn't a blanket
Right.
industrial designation in
Okay,
our
thanks
comp
for
plan.
clarifying that. That's all I had.
Well, it confused me. So are you suggesting that we could go either way
Mm,
on that?
I'm suggesting a split zone, not a split zone, but
RM on those
RM
residential?
on those industrial residential
On
pieces.
Umptana.
On Umptanum, and then light industrial for the balance of the MTA properties that do not
So-
have the residences.
So even the ones
This one,
south
up
of the city lot?
yes, those would have to, right now, be an industrial zoning because that's what our comp plan designation is. It wouldn't be consistent. We could then, at a future process, consider a docket amendment to change that and then go through a rezone process. But right now, for consistency's sake, that would be the process. It would be inconsistent to assign a residential zone to just a straight industrial designation of our comp plan.
So if I could follow up, sorry about this, but one more clarification. So the staff report talks about 8 parcels not being included in the notice of intent to annex, which we're talking about these parcels, but
Correct.
I guess is the RM zone intended to apply to all 8 of these, or what's the
No,
total
just the
number?
5.
So 5 of those 8.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get my head around. Okay.
Any more questions? If Sarah or Monica, if you need to raise your hand because we can't see you.
Sorry, you get them back.
Okay.
Did you want to ask for public comment?
Oh, is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on the Anderson Road annexation boundary setting? Seeing no one. Their motion.
Hey, Rich, aren't you gonna make a You're our man.
Go, Rich. Oh.
I guess I would make a motion to, what's the right verbiage?
To commence annexation.
Commence annexation, commensurate with the area described in Exhibit 3 of our packets.
And including the zoning.
And simultaneous adoption of zoning as provided for in the agenda report.
As amended.
Yeah. Can we amend that rather than described in the agenda report as
Staff.
described verbally by staff,
Staff report.
which is different because he doesn't include the RM. In the
As
written.
presented by Community Development
staff.
Director Aileen.
Could staff also request that the motion include whether or not the applicant should whether the city will require assumption of the portion of the existing debt?
Yes.
Item 4.
Okay, so to repeat the motion. The motion is to commence annexation proceedings, setting the annexation area as shown on the Exhibit 3, adopting the zoning as IL, as described by the staff as IL for the majority of the property and RM for the 5 lots on Tatum Road by the freeway. And requiring the assumption of any portion of existing indebtedness by the area to be annexed. Second. Should have waited for the second before I repeated. Sorry. Out of order. Okay, so discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 will vote
Aye.
aye. Opposed? That motion carries. So next annexation. This is for a parcel on Dollar Way Road.
Yes. Okay, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jamie Ailing with Community Development. And this is another notice of intention for annexation for 17.5 acres at 1501 West Dollar Way Road. It is one parcel number 946133. We are to consider notice of intent, set the annexation boundaries. This particular one, it is currently an island of county jurisdiction. It's surrounded on all sides by city with the exception of 2 parcels, Mr. Birdwell and Mr. Reels. Those property owners were not able to be reached. The applicant did not reach out to them either. We do not have enough value to absorb those, so we would be in this particular application with the one parcel boundary shown in blue as proposed would be shrinking an island of county jurisdiction and bringing this 17.5 acres into the city. We have one more island to the east that's very similar, but this one, we do have the one property owner. It is Solar Dollar LLC. They have signed the notice of intent and intend to bring this one property in. If you recall, this one was subject to one of our docket requests in the last comp plan amendment. So the comp plan designation is community mixed use, and they would request the regional center mixed use zoning designation for this particular property. Same process will be followed as far as setting the annexation. Then it would go to the planning commission for a public hearing, back to council for a hearing and a reading, first and second reading of an ordinance to complete the annexation process. With that, I don't think there's, I will note one correction in my staff report is that I did state that this was not currently served by city utilities. It actually is served by city utilities. They have this utility account. There is water, electric, and gas that we do serve. There is one house on the front of this property currently, and it is served with city utilities. So I do need to make that correction. And with that, that would conclude my report.
Are there any questions from Mr. Amen?
So just for point of clarification, the 2 houses that are excluded from the annexation are not served by city utilities.
That's a very good question, because if
If
they
they
are,
are,
we
they've
could
already
invoke
agreed to
that.
annex.
Let's see. That is a very good question that I don't have that answer, so we could, there would not be harm in postponing this to find that out.
Because we can't add to this after we approve the boundary, right? We get one shot at
could
this.
It would
check
have to
with
be
them.
a separate annexation. You could do that.
Hmm.
I guess I would prefer to do it all as one if they're served by city utilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too.
And even though we can't force them in, it doesn't hurt to ask them if they want to come in if we can reach.
Those
them.
attempts have been made and then did find that they are, at least the Birdwell property is a tenant that's not a landowner, doesn't live there. And the dog in the yard is rather large, so.
Opposed to annexation is what you're saying.
The dog is opposed to.
More than likely,
I'll bet, I'll
but
bet. But if I understand correctly, if those properties are connected to city.
then we
they've
already
Waived
have
their
a-
right to object then.
Correct.
Okay, I would like that resolved.
I would too.
Not a problem. I appreciate that approach. I apologize for bringing that forward without that.
And that should just be part of this city record somewhere, right?
Yes, this would be as
They have
simple
a
as what I,
Outside
yes.
utility agreement.
Mhm.
So do we need to formally table this?
No, since it's just scheduled as an agenda item, it wasn't a hearing, so
Okay,
we'll bring it back at a later time.
okay. Thank you. So we're gonna hop back to item 8A. This is a closed record appeal hearing. I have a script that the city attorney makes me read. Purpose of this hearing is for the city council to consider the pertinent facts, applicable law, and to make final decision in the appeal of the matter of the certificate of authority issued by the Landmarks and Design Commission to applicant Brad Case on behalf of the city of Ellensburg Parks and Recreation Department for application number P 22-115 regarding the proposed demolition of the structure known as the Wells Fargo Bank Building. I will now open the closed record hearing for the appeal of this matter by Pat Kelleher. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is a closed record appeal hearing. There has already been an open record hearing before Landmarks and Design Commission where evidence was submitted and testimony received. Under state law, there can only be one open record public hearing allowed in this proceeding. This closed record appeal hearing means the council bases its decision on the record developed at the open record public hearing previously held before the Landmarks and Design Commission, as well as submissions regarding this appeal received by the appellant, Mr. Kelleher, and city staff. Therefore, no new testimony or introduction of new materials or evidence is allowed. Comments or arguments must address only the record established during the previous open record hearing before Landmarks and Design Commission. Comments from speakers must be in the nature of argument only, based on and limited to facts in the written and oral record developed before the Landmarks and Design Commission. If anyone presents comments that are not based on facts in the record, anyone may make an objection. If an objection is made, the person speaking will stop until the issue of the objection is resolved. Only persons who participated in the previous open record hearing before the Landmarks and Design Commission may participate in this closed record hearing, which includes only Mr. Kelleher, city staff, and the city's consultant from Walker Macy. The city clerk will be making a record of the proceedings. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. The city council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask the council members the following questions. Does any member of the council have a personal interest in the property or issue that is the subject of this appeal?
No.
No. Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer a financial loss as a result of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
No.
Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner.
No.
No.
Has any council member engaged in communication with opponents or proponents regarding this issue outside of the public hearing process?
No.
No.
The issue being the appeal, not Unity Park as
Since the application was filed
since,
in October.
if so, so everyone said no, right? Is any council member employed by a party which has direct or indirect interest in any property, the value of which will be affected by a decision in this matter?
No.
No.
Can you clarify that? Can you say that one again?
Is any council member employed by a party which has a direct or indirect interest in any property, the value of which will be affected by a decision in this matter?
I'm unclear. I'm employed by a business again that, across the street. How do I know that?
Will the value of that property be?
It's unknown, but I think the fact that, that if she's disclosing that now, it's sufficient. If someone wants to challenge her on that basis, they can do that, but she's only required to disclose that it may impact if she doesn't know for sure.
It may.
Will any council member be employed by a party for which the potential employment may be a result of the decision in this matter?
No.
No.
Is any council member a member of or involved in such outside associations or organizations, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on the appeal?
No.
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 Is there anyone present at this time who objects to my participation or any council member's participation in these proceedings on the appearance of fairness grounds? Is
Pat Keller, 6530 Wilson Creek Road, representing myself.
do you object to anyone's participation?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like, there's two things that go on with the record. One is the date of the close of when you close the record from the hearing. And then there's the appellate record that you compile going forward. When is council ex parte to the appellate record? What date? Does my filing put you ex parte?
We need the definition of the ex parte, I think.
It's during the time that the matter was pending, which would be dated from the time from October 31st, 2022 through today.
That would be for the public, the original public hearing. I'm talking.
It doesn't matter. It's the
It doesn't,
same.
so it goes back to October? Is that ex parte date? October what?
October 31st.
Okay. So I object to you all stated, and I'd have to be more thorough. I was more concerned about the Parks and Recreation council member Miller participating in a council meeting that just recently that had a very extensive Unity Park briefing. Okay, update. That was what I stepped forward for. But now that I know the ex parte date is October 31st, I think we need some disclosure here. Thank you.
Guidance, the disclosure would be, did we have any conversations about Unity Park with anyone since October?
With the proponents or opponents of
With
the
proponents
proposal.
of the Unity Park proposal?
Correct.
Outside of public hearings, outside of open public meetings?
Outside, It would be outside of the public meeting process, yes.
So when we have discussed Unity Park at council, that doesn't, and because I think we have since October.
That's correct. And that is allowed as part of what, I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead, but that's in the staff report that the discussion in those meetings is still allowed under the statute. So the appearance of fairness statute. The whole idea is to give, the analysis is that the idea behind disclosing that is to allow members of the public to know if there were ex parte discussions. And ex parte means outside of the public process, because obviously a person who's challenging will know what was said during those public meetings. So it's talking about if there were phone conversations or one-on-one meetings or meetings where the public wasn't invited after October 31st, 2022, where those discussions took place, to give the person a chance to rebut what was told to them by the proponents or opponents of the project.
And this
That's
is
the reason for the disclosure.
only in regards to what's being appealed, which is the demolition of the
At this point, for this hearing, it's just the demolition.
bank building. Searching my memory banks.
So proponent would be the city of Ellensburg.
Correct.
Right.
We answer this individually. Or is this collective?
Well, you've already answered it. So if somebody has something that, if this has triggered a different answer, you can supplement it, but you don't need to answer it again.
Well,
So,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, so if somebody's asked what's happening at Unity Park. And we answered that the COA was approved at Landmarks and Design, is that considered discussion?
Well, again, it's discussion with opponents or proponents. I don't know that merely providing information about what the process has been. False.
Okay, okay.
I'll throw one in it. I don't think it's significant, but full disclosure. Because it was a city arts commission meeting, of which I'm the council liaison. The COA was not discussed, I mean, as an action item or an agenda item. However, there was a question raised by members of the Arts Commission about what the appeal was all about. And I responded that I couldn't talk about that, but it would be subject to a future council meeting. So there was some discussion, but I think they were just confused why there was an appeal, and they weren't, obviously the Arts Commission isn't plugged into this, but they're familiar with the project and they thought this was moving forward. So I just put that out there. So full disclosure.
COA.
Certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
It's what the Landmarks and Design Commission issued for two of these.
Thank you.
I have no recollection of speaking to anyone for or against this issue, this fall or winter. So, Mr. Kelleher, you are formally objecting to Monica Miller's participation. Is that? What I understand?
That was my initial concern. So now with the saying something to someone at a coffee clutch is not ex parte. We got to be the party. I'm a party. And that's why since I wasn't a party, I don't think the ex parte date is correct because I wasn't a party yet. You're going to go back to October 31st. I'm not the one that picked that date. Okay. Your guy did. Okay. So I don't think it's correct. Okay. But any discussion you had with Brad Case about Unity Park is ex parte after October 31st. I find it difficult to believe that nobody has talked to Brad Case outside of public hearing since October 31st about Unity Park. I don't know it personally. I just don't think logistically it's possible. I think the ex parte date is incorrect. I think the ex parte date for this is closer to my filing, where I would have I don't think it was wise for Councilman Miller to attend the Parks and Recreation Committee while Unity Park was under appeal and receive an extensive briefing by the proponent. That was my point.
And that was during a clarifying question, that was during an open public meeting. So that doesn't apply.
That's not correct.
I'm
Ex
clarifying.
parte, ex parte, you need to, the other proponent needs to be informed of it. Now, that I happen to be there doesn't then make it non-ex parte. I was never informed of the communication.
It's up to individual council members whether they would want to recuse themselves. I haven't heard anything from the appellant that would cause me concern that they should recuse themselves.
I'm okay staying in.
Okay, is it anyone else you object to?
Oh.
Yeah. So before we hear from the appellant, is there a staff report to be presented?
Can I indulge you with a question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. It's very important in these hearings to develop a record. There's two records. There's the closed record and then there's the appellate record. Okay, I'll refer you to your 14 February letter to me, the official notice, which noticed this hearing to be on the March 6th for both, which I found kind of strange that you would notice, you know, I paid separately for each hearing, but I was noticed in an official notice from you for both of these, trying to get square here, P2319, which this is, and P2302, is that right? Hearings, okay. Then I received and my concern is this, I sent an email to the attorney, your attorney, that said, hey, where's the record? When am I going to get the record? And he said that I would get the record, and I got a reference. You should have this email, his email, because we're not ex parte, we're communicating within the appellate. So you have this email in your record, but it hasn't been provided. Okay. So he said, I had a couple questions, and let me.
So it's where are you going, Pat, with this?
To get published, the normal course, okay, I wanted the record, the closed hearing record that was compiled by the city to review for the hearing, during the hearing, before the hearing, which I paid $450, of which, when you noticed me, you said the fee was $425 in the notice letter accepting my appeal. But when I show up at the desk, they collect $450. So I don't understand that. But here, the public should be able to review the record before the closed record hearing. This is staff, the materials to be considered by the city council will be published. This is what you, when you're able to review the record, will be published in the normal course of council agenda process no later than March 16th. Okay, this was February 28th email. Okay, the hearing was on March 6th. The record was supposed to be produced by March 16th. The record was produced last Thursday. That gave me 3 business days. I gave you 3 business days to review this record,
Yeah,
okay?
that's how I spent Sunday.
Well, I spent Sunday going
So-
to a magic convention, Saturday and Sunday.
Is there something missing from the record that,
The point I'm trying to make here, yes, there is. And the point I'm trying to make here is city staff has had 28 business days to review the closed record. I've had 3 business days. I would request a continuance so that I can properly review the record and prepare for this hearing. That's what I'm requesting is a continuance.
okay. I have no objection to a continuance. Is there any reason we need to proceed this evening?
Well, city code requires that the hearing be held within 45 days, I believe, of the notice of appeal. I'd have to run the dates. I don't know.
Even
think-
if the request is from the appellant to continue?
If he's willing to, I guess if he's willing to agree in writing, and I don't know whether we haven't got to the second hearing yet, but
Right.
I guess I just don't understand what, other than preparation, the record is almost all the documents that he submitted already, along with the cities.
Would you be willing to put your request for continuance in writing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Affirmative.
Does anyone on council have an objection to continuing?
So just to clarify the content of the packet, I mean, no new information is presented beyond the closed record hearing, but we've got staff responses to the appeal. That's the part
The only new information that Mr. Kelleher has not seen was staff report.
okay. That's what I was.
Is that correct?
No.
Okay,
What are we missing?
because everything else was submitted by you. Pretty much. I mean,
Your question to me, is the closed record complete? No.
okay, that wasn't my question. Well, that.
Madam Mayor, I guess if the reason for the continuance is for Mr. Kelleher to try to add to the closed record appeal, I would suggest that we need to know what he's intending to add to the closed record that he feels wasn't included.
Is the issue that you did not have time to prepare, or that you want to add something to the closed record?
First issue is I didn't have time to prepare. I was given 3 business days, where your staff had over 28 days to review the record. When the close, it's your responsibility, it's the city's responsibility to produce the closed record. Okay, so yes, I didn't have time to prepare. Because I was told it was going to be on the other 16th. It didn't come out till Thursday. Yes, there's problems with.
16th.
Yeah.
Thursday was. the
Oh,
16th.
okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I had 3 days to prepare. Yes, there are items missing out of in my opinion, missing out of the closed record.
Which you would correct during the period of continuance.
It's your record. I can give you a hint.
We need, well, we need to be clear on what records you would like added.
I'm not adding to the closed record. I want the records that were submitted during the period included in the closed record. I'm not adding anything.
So the closed record is based on the Landmarks and Design Commission meeting. That's where the record was established.
Here's one thing,
Any
maybe I,
communications between you and the attorney in between time,
that
I'm
would
not
be
sure.
part of the appellate record.
I
Here's one thing,
I'm not a
okay.
lawyer, but
Okay, during the public hearing, during the landmarks and review, it was recorded. Is the recording part of the closed record?
I have,
It's not part of the record, but it can be referred to, just like any documents can be referred to. Mr. Keller has a copy of that. If he wants to make or refer to the transcript, if he wants to prepare one, he can do that, but it's not part of the record. It is a recording that can be used for that purpose. Just like this hearing is being recorded, but you know, we don't cite to it as part of the appellate record unless someone wants to. Because, and the reason I say that is because it's what the Landmarks and Design Commission relied upon in making their decision. The recording merely documents what that hearing
the
discussion
conversation
was.
of the
Correct.
decision. So what would you like included in the record during the continuance?
The sound recording of the public hearing.
Is that appropriate if we all get the sound recording?
Well,
Is it just,
I don't,
it's not-
the two different questions that raises. I don't, staff doesn't object. If he wants to include the recording, include the recording. I don't think it adds anything from a staff perspective, but I don't also, I think with the recording, it should serve a purpose if there's going to be specific references to testimony during the hearing. I think, you know, that's fine. It's up to council whether you know, as an exhibit, you want to, if it's added, you want to listen to, I don't know how long the hearings lasted, but however long it was. That's up to you to decide.
is there testimony that you would like to refer to?
Yes, yes. Now, there's other documents missing. One is, okay, I communicated with staff that because I wanted all my written comments in the record for the landmarks and commission. I finally understood that these are two separate deals. I said, I want these filed in both, although I sent her one email.
And we have,
No, you don't have any emails in the record.
the emails were after the
No,
Landmarks and
the-
Design
you-
Commission.
No, they were prior to. They were referred to by staff that you weren't sitting there. The landmarks and commission members were sitting there. Mr. Kelleher has filed, submitted emails before this hearing, and I have forwarded them all to you. You have no emails from me in the closed record that were submitted before the hearing. Not one.
You have a lot of documents that you submitted.
Okay,
So the emails that,
The comment that was submitted is in there, Exhibit 4, I believe.
now, okay, that's comments when. Here's the problem. One of the documents I submitted by attachment to my email was the parking study.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Mr.? I didn't hear that.
Was the parking study. Okay, because I referred to it in my testimony. Okay, So I wanted to be able to go back into the parking study is in the closed record. I can refer to that, reference it when I'm talking to you today. It's not in the closed record. My emails aren't in the closed record. In the appellate, my emails aren't in the aren't in the appellate record.
So I'm going to,
Can I ask a
Sure.
question? Where are we we have a closed record public hearing process, and it feels like we're wandering around inside that process. Are we where we're supposed to be in terms of process?
No, we are supposed to be hearing from a staff report, but I think that the determining whether we have the entire record and whether or not we're going to continue the hearing to satisfy that the record is complete.
Is there a place inside we've got an open hearing going right now.
We do.
Is there a place for us to be doing this, or should we close the hearing and handle this matter and come back in? Because it feels like we're deviating significantly from our process right now, and that bothers me. This is a very structured process.
It is. And I.
So I think Councilmember Elliott raises a good point. You could, for these purposes of this discussion, close the hearing. And then if you make a decision either to go forward with the hearing or not, you can reopen the hearing and state what the occurrence is. And during that interlude, you can address Mr. Kelleher's concerns or move forward in some other fashion.
Okay. I'll close the hearing. Reserving the right to reopen it. I'm not sure how to get beyond this other than to just continue the hearing and have Mr. Kelleher work with staff to establish what is the true record that we should be reviewing. If he feels that they're to submit the document or to identify which documents you feel are missing. I mean, if
That's quite reasonable.
Unless you're saying the city establishes what the record is, well, they have, and then we can proceed.
Well, I mean, yes, to sit down with your staff, and I'm not saying I think this should be in. No. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. There are several documents that I think should be included from the hearing and from the appellate filings that that council should be aware of so that we can talk about this constructively.
So I think a way forward is Mr. Kelleher can submit documents he thinks.
Are we closed?
The hearing is closed. It's a discussion.
He could submit those documents through staff, which would be community development. The issue will be whether he's trying to add to the record or merely submit documents that he feels that were excluded from the record. I know from staff review that Mr. Kelleher submitted additional documentation or comments that were not part of his comments in the Landmarks and Design Commission hearing. And that's noted in the report, and staff said that we did not object to those because he's basically reiterating what was already said in a different manner. But staff would obviously have concerns if he's wanting to submit additional documentation or comments that go beyond, again, what was in the Landmarks and Design Commission hearing. There's no ability to add additional documents once you file an appeal. That's the whole idea. The appeal shuts off what the record is. So with that comment, I think that's the process for it.
And I agree, and there are valid documents missing that should have been in the closed record. I'm not trying to add anything.
Council, is there any objection to continuing this hearing at our next meeting?
Could I suggest that the next meeting might be actually a little soon because I don't know when Mr. Keller can submit his materials, but our next deadline date would be coming up this week to get the agenda, start to put it together and then have it issued. So,
What do you recall how close to the 45 days are we going to run into? a
well,
situation?
what I heard was Mr. Keller doesn't object to extending that.
I don't object to that.
And technically, it's
I
up to
think
the
it's
applicant.
technically the
Okay.
the
okay,
applicant.
Okay. Well,
So I
it's
don't
on the
know.
record. So
Yeah,
there we go.
I don't.
The 45 days protects the applicant.
Okay.
not-
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Case indicated that he didn't object.
Oh.
Just so you're aware.
Was that telepathically? I didn't.
No,
I didn't get that. So that was good.
Ex parte.
I'm sorry, did Mr. Case say that he did or didn't object? I
Did
didn't.
not.
Did not, okay.
So we will continue this hearing eith- at a future meeting.
Yeah, if we can, depending on what happens, if we can put it together in time for the April 3rd meeting, we'll do that. If not, we'll let you council members know and that'll be at the next meeting after that.
Okay, April 3rd would, with your, I mean, that would be a little tight, but
So we'll consider the second meeting.
the
in
second meeting. in April.
And does this apply to the second closed reading
I think we ought
also?
to
To open the second,
Open the second, my suggestion is open the second meeting. I think you can open it without the preliminary questions to council and just one other question while we're outside of the public hearing process is if Mr. Kelleher knows when he can submit these materials to us by, that will help us on our schedule.
I will try to have it to you by Friday of next week at the latest. I'll,
Friday of next week or this week?
next week.
It would have to be in the second meeting. in April.
Yeah, there's no,
then
yeah, that would be
that's-
after our.
That's the
yeah.
second meeting.
That's up to council.
Well, I think we need to just plan on this being at the second meeting in April, whatever day that is.
The 17th.
Sorry, one follow-up question. If sorry, I'm in a public office workspace. If that meeting is stacked, is it possible to have a special meeting? That's my question for this issue. I was just wondering if by saying we're doing it, are we committing to it being that second meeting in April, or are we open to it being a special meeting if need be?
I would be 100% opposed to that.
Okay, all right. Fine.
I'm not happy about delaying the meeting. I'll go along with it.
I think it's important to have the record correct. And so
Madam Mayor, and to that point, a motion for continuance is appropriate when you have a public hearing that's going to be continued.
okay,
So is that public hearing number 1 or number 2?
this one.
For this,
the
for this
that
one, and I
the
would
one that is open.
I think you need to reopen the hearing and then address that issue.
Reopen the first hearing.
First hearing, yes.
Usually we have discussion in the motion after the hearing, the public portion of the hearing is closed. Don't we?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we're in the closed portion of the hearing. Yes. But
So-
it does require a motion.
It does, but I don't need to open again.
No.
So. Is there a motion to continue or are you? Yeah, we need a motion to continue the hearing at a later
At a-
date.
At a future date to be
Future date.
determined by staff and probably no later than April 17th, unless we come back to you and for some reason ask for more time. But I would say April 17th.
So I need someone to
So
make
moved.
a motion or
Something to that effect.
continue.
Okay, so the motion would be to continue the public hearing for this particular closed record hearing appeal. And the date for the second meeting of April, April 17th. Based on, and with the proviso that if staff needs additional time, we can schedule later.
Second.
Motion and second to continue the hearing regarding proposed demolitions in downtown landmarks historic district related to COA approval P 22-115 to April 17th. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. So the item 8B, is closed record appeal hearing to review Landmarks and Design Commission certificate of appropriateness approval P 22-002. Proposed new construction in the downtown landmarks historic district. I don't need to read the script. But I will open the hearing. Well, we just have discussion before we open it here.
You could open the hearing and then still have, it doesn't matter at this point. You can open, since you opened the previous one and
Yes.
then made the motion. So you should technically open the hearing, move to continue, and then you can close it for that.
So I'll open the hearing. And the intent is to continue as before. I need a motion to continue.
And just for the record, just to have Mr. Kelleher's agreement that the hearing can be continued until a date later than, that's outside the 45 days required by our code.
Yes, I'm totally agreed to it. And I believe that's that the opponent is the one that's the concerned party for the 45 days, not the
Oh, the appellant.
Yeah.
Does the proponent agree? So actually, does this put construction schedule in jeopardy at all?
Not at this point.
So the council, is there a motion?
I'll move that we continue the closed record appeal hearing to review Landmarks and Design Commission COA approval P 23-002 to a date to be determined approximately April 17th with the understanding that the appellate is in agreement, and if staff needs additional time, we reserve the right to schedule beyond April 17th. It's not really a motion, but that's all of it.
Motion and second to continue the closed record appeal hearing for P 22-002 COA approval to April 17th. Is there a discussion? Is there all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
2 vote aye. Opposed?
No.
That motion carries. Okay. So we will move on and see you Come on.
Thank you.
We we are at the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Heidi Barron, Sternaway City Manager. Just a few items. A reminder that Waste Management Spring Cleanup Days are scheduled for April 1st through 8th. And also a reminder that our Public Works and Utilities offices are going to be closed for business for a staff retreat from 8 to 3 on April 5th, which is a Wednesday. And the item 3 on the manager's report is just an informational item. Council does not need to set a public hearing. We'll do that for you. But that will be for the Calvary Church outside utility extension. A public hearing will be set for April 3rd on that item. On the dais, you have in front of you a community open house flyer. Please share these. There's more on the back table for the public. And this is an open community public open house here in the council chambers on the 28th of March, talking about the work that a collaborative group has been working on to address issues of homelessness in our community. And we have a lot of folks who will be here talking about the services they provide and how we're trying to work together. We'll have specific information about the sleep center so people can come and learn more and about the cold weather shelter and about the behavioral health court. So lots of really great information here in this room, the 28th. And then let's see here. Finally, as Kelly Vandenberg shared earlier today, Habitat has started digging footings and pouring footings for their development. So I'll send something out in our newsletter about that. You'll have some photos that they shared with us. And that's all I have for this evening. And a reminder that we do not need an executive session tonight as it's on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to fit in. We were going to try and find a spot on the agenda. Maybe the manager's report. is
Manager's report
fitting.
would be appropriate. Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
I do have Jamie Ailing with Community Development, and I do have with us our newest employee, our planning manager, Jeremy Johnson, is in attendance
Good
at the
God,
meeting
sorry.
tonight.
Well, just wait.
Yeah, recognitions and awards maybe at the
Yeah.
beginning of the meetings.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Notice you stay close to the door, so it's
Yes.
not too late.
You'll be seeing lots of Jeremy, so welcome.
Welcome, yes. So council is, let's minimize our council reports. Sarah, Monica, do you have anything?
I'm good.
No, you
Same.
don't. Good, sorry.
Thank you for not coming.
Rich?
Nothing.
Really quick, because I don't want to be the only one. Just Arts Commission was regular meeting, PTAX tomorrow. Just a quick update, February 2023 ridership, fixed route ridership compared to last year, 2022 February is up 47%. So that's a pretty significant jump and that's trending this year that way. That's it.
I just want to, and I got a snail mail, Department of Ecology is inviting public comment on a draft cleanup action plan for Smith Chem on South Railroad Avenue. And all the other stuff y'all find out later. So, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.